I see we have a quorum, Mr. Chair. Cheryl, can we start the broadcast?
Yeah, we're good to go anytime.
Okay.
All right. Might as well start right now. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of applications under the Planning Act. My name is John Blatherwick and I will be chairing this hearing this afternoon. With me are my fellow panel members, Bonnie Oak Charon, Stan Wilder, Heather McLean, and Michael Wildman. Please take note that this video conference is being live streamed on YouTube. The video will be archived along with today's agenda on the city's website. Before we begin, we have a few items to outline for your information. While the issues surrounding development in the city are broad, our mandate is quite limited. The committee cannot consider aspects of the proposal that are not related to the required variances: noise, pollution, property maintenance, property values, prosecution for illegal construction, personal comments regarding neighbors, agents, or applicants, and additional variances without proper public notice. If there is an identified need for an additional variance or variances, including an increase in the extent of the relief required, a recirculation of the application is required. Part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. And we have two of the items today where signs, stat decks have been received. The rest have not, so I'm going to have to administer an oath to the applicants or the owners before we can proceed with their hearing. Regarding quorum, if this is lost during the hearing due to technical difficulties, the proceedings will be paused to allow time for the resolution of the issue. Failing the ability to reinstate quorum, hearing of the items remaining will resume at the outset of the next regularly scheduled meeting of the committee. In terms of the hearing process, listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen are the applications we will hear today. For the sake of efficiency, the committee may deal with agenda items in a different order. Note that the committee members have reviewed the application materials prior to this hearing and any written submissions received in support or opposition. In addition, the committee will hear today oral submissions from any interested parties as part of our proceedings. The committee may ask for a brief presentation by the applicant, followed by questions from the members where clarification may be needed. The public submissions portion of the hearing will then begin, and any interested parties will be invited to make their submissions to the committee. Panel members may then ask follow-up questions where added clarification may be required. When you are called upon to provide your comments, we will ask you to do the following. Start with stating your name and municipal address for the record. We may ask you to spell your name. Then begin your submission by addressing your comments to the panel members. You may ask questions, but please direct them only to the chair. Please limit your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at the committee's discretion. Once all interested parties have had an opportunity to address the panel, the public submissions portion of the hearing will then be closed. The committee will then make an oral decision to either grant or deny the application. The committee may also choose to reserve its decision. In such case, the panel will deliberate further on the evidence presented immediately following adjournment of the public hearing. In either case, the committee will send within 10 days of its decision, and to all parties and those who have requested it, a written decision that sets out the reasons for the decision. All decisions of the committee are subject to a 20-day appeal period, during which the decision can be appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal for a fee. Before we begin, are there any declarations of interest? You're muted, Ms. McLean.
Thank you. I am declaring conflict of interest for the property at 8284 Eccles and will not be participating in the hearing of this application. I believe that one of the owners of the property is an acquaintance of a family member. Thank you.
Any other conflict of interest? Any other members? I have one myself on panel 2's agenda this evening, 498 Wentworth Avenue. This property is directly behind me and immediately to the right. And like I have since I've sat on committee, any applications that come before this panel or any other two panels that involve a property in my neighborhood, I automatically declare a conflict of interest. So I have a conflict of interest regarding 498 Wentworth Avenue in the panel 2 hearing tonight. We have no minutes to adopt. We have no other business. And before we get to the agenda, we have one item which is up for an adjournment. And this would be number 1 on the agenda, 54 Strathcona Avenue. And I believe the request for the adjournment was from the planning department. If the planning department would like to make the comments, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The reason for the adjournment is because throughout reviewing the application, an additional variance was identified, which is related to the amenity space required. Given that that variance was not sought, we are requesting the adjournment, so to provide more time for the applicant to submit that additional variance.
Okay, and I assume that the applicant has agreed.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Henderson has raised her hand. Ms. Henderson, please proceed.
Hello, sorry for the delay. Yes, I'm acting as agent on behalf of the owner. We agree to the request for an adjournment and have already submitted the revised documents. So we would request the next available hearing date.
Yeah, I think we can fit you into onto the August 19th agenda.
Okay.
All right. All right, and all members in favor of adjourning this application until the 19th of August? Okay, the application is adjourned. See you then.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll now move to item 2 on the agenda. The address is 64 Sladen Avenue. There is a statutory declaration on this, so we don't have to administer the oath. And I believe we have Ms. Butt is going to be the applicant's agent on this. Or Mr. Clare.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. I've got a bit of a presentation I'm happy to proceed with now if that's now's the appropriate time.
Yeah.
So it's just slightly over 5 minutes, so appreciate everyone's time in advance.
For the public's interest, though, who the members, the people who may be wishing to speak, I'll just read the summary of the application. Minor variance is to permit required parking to be located off-site at 640 Noranda Avenue, reduced rear yard and southerly interior side yard setbacks, reduced parking space lengths, and to permit 6 existing parking spaces to not have a driveway, private way, an aisle leading to a driveway, or a public lane. It is proposed to construct 2 additions at the rear of the existing school. So please proceed.
Okay, so thanks very much. My name is Ben Clare. I'm a professional planner with McIntosh Perry. My office address is 115 Walgreen. I'm attending on behalf of Daimling Architecture, as well as Krista Construction and Saint Laurent Academy. In attendance are Jeff Lozon from Krista Construction and Bill Cocolieris from Saint Laurent Academy. Bill's advised in the event that questions are asked of him that he might have some Wi-Fi difficulties. So apologies if that ends up being the case. So a bit of background. The 5 variances applied for are necessary in order to facilitate ongoing site plan control approvals for the construction of roughly 900 square meters in the way of a 3-story and 1-story expansions on the east and south sides of the existing school building.
Where's your site plan process at the present time? How far along?
We're currently responding to staff's 2nd round of comments. So it's just about to mention that it's going relatively smoothly, with the exception of an unrelated servicing matter that we're currently working through with staff.
So we're not premature dealing with these variances today? Not going to be any
No.
surprises down the road?
No, and staff have been involved and are in agreement with us proceeding now with the variances.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah. So the expansion is going to house some new reconfigured classrooms, preschool space, washrooms, and an indoor swimming pool on the ground level with associated facilities such as change rooms.
Right.
So in terms of the variances, I've kind of grouped them into two different categories. Variances A, D, and E are relate to the existing parking configuration and are triggered by way of site plan. So in order to obtain site plan approvals, we need these variances. For some time, the school has relied on 640 Noranda Avenue to fulfill parking demands. So 640 Noranda is very close. You can see on the plan, it is to the southwest, and Forbes Park lies in between.
Who owns the parking lot? That's out of curiosity.
The parking lot is owned by a numbered company, and the director of the school is a director of that numbered company. So it's jointly owned with the school at a high level.
All right.
Variance A will permit this required parking for 641 Sladen to be located off-site. It's required in order to legalize that relationship. The next variance is D and E. So following severance approvals in 2011, which separated 641 Sladen from 638 Center Street, which is on the screen is the blank property and behind to the east. The front yard parking configuration of 641 Sladen was reworked, and that happened in the summer of 2012, so about 8 years ago.
Is that done with permit?
That is has been undetermined, to be honest, and that's what I was going to speak to. So we engaged with staff a little bit on this, tried to get into the background. We weren't involved at the time, but what I believe happened is that by way of the severance approvals, drawings reflecting the reconfiguration were included. And it's possible that approvals were obtained, but I believe what happened is that there was a misunderstanding that the severance approvals were also approvals for that reconfiguration. So we have to treat that as undetermined at this particular moment. And in speaking about this with staff, we agreed that regardless of what happened in the past, the current site plan approvals would capture what's now existing.
Okay.
So variances D and E will permit the spaces to be accessed directly from Sladen, and will permit a reduced depth of those spaces. In parallel to approvals, we're also pursuing an encroachment agreement with rights of way for those spaces.
And has that been successfully concluded?
No, rights of way preferred that site plan approvals advances and that the variance is obtained, and that agreement would form part of site plan approvals.
Okay.
I state within the plan that these three variances meet the four tests as part of the minor variance approvals. A note, I'm not clear on the address for 640 Noranda. In some instances, it's referred to as 640 Sladen.
You're losing your audio, sir.
Are you able to hear me now?
That's a little better, yeah.
Okay. So just mentioning that I'm not perfectly clear on the address for 640 Noranda. And in some instances, it's referred to as 640 Sladen. So I would just ask that in the decision, if staff's able to confirm the legal or the municipal address. I believe it's 640 Noranda, but that should be clarified.
Okay.
With respect to the proposed expansion, there's two variances that actually deal with the expansion. So those are B and C. At a very high level, variance B seeks relief from the required rear yard setback of 4.5 meters. This variance represents relief of 0.3 meters, so about 1 foot. And I understand from the project architects that this variance is being pursued in order to ensure that the proposed pool will actually have a functional width. When compared with the requirements of the zoning bylaw, the 1 foot variance is not expected to introduce measurable impact on the lands to the east, upon which that's 638 Center, upon which a retirement residence is presently being constructed. Variance C, which seeks 4.6 meters of relief from the required interior side yard setback of 7.5 meters, is to permit a relatively small 44 square meter, 1-story vestibule, an entrance vestibule within the side yard. Especially when considering the mass of the school behind the vestibule, it's not anticipated that this change is going to cause undue adverse impact. Through the site plan process that's being established at the interior side yard, we're made functional from a design standpoint and a civil engineering standpoint. The planning brief elaborates on these points and concludes that all variances requested meet the 4 tests, being general intent of the OP and the bylaw, that they're minor and that they're desirable for the development use of the property. It's worthwhile pointing out as well that with the exception of legalizing the off-street parking, the as-of-right zoning allows for the bulk of what's being proposed by way of site plan approvals. So these variances really improve the functionality of the proposal. Overall, they're not going to change the major thrust of what's being proposed on the property. In terms of comments, the comments have been received from Building Code Services, Planning, Conservation Authority, and Forestry. They don't raise any concerns. However, I hope that committee members are in receipt of 3 comments received from neighbors, Anne Lalone, Joanne Arsenault, and a joint letter from Hugo Latriel and it's La Police.
Yes,
they identified.
We have those in our file.
Yeah, and I'd just like to speak to those briefly. They identify parking and traffic concerns, mostly relating to pickup and drop-off activity, conditions of the public street adjacent to the school, snow removal, current size of the schoolyard and associated use of Forbes Park, lack of environmental considerations for new builds going up. Concerns are also raised about the possibility that 640 Noranda will be developed in the future. And suggestions are made to relocate the school, prevent students from using play structures in certain areas of the park, and to either construct a 3-story parking garage at 640 Noranda or convert it to a park. As a planner, I truly believe it's very important and member of the community, or a community. It's important and beneficial to growth and development to engage the public, and I appreciate the engagement of those who provided comments. Respectfully, however, for the purposes of this application, I must assert that the comments largely do not pertain to the variances at hand. Regardless of the outcome of the variances, I believe that discussions between the school, the city, and the community regarding traffic and use of the park are likely to continue. That's my presentation. Happy to stay on board here for any comments.
I believe Mr. Wildman has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a comment that staff is in agreement to delay the requirement for the encroachment permit until the severance and the site plan are dealt with. I'd like to comment from staff on that, because it does seem a bit like putting the cart before the horse. If we permit some of these variances and then the encroachment permit is not forthcoming, what have we done? So I'd like to have the staff comment on that, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was not aware of that comment regarding the encroachment agreement. However, I could reach out to the planner on the site plan application to find out more information regarding what would happen if the variances are approved or the encroachment agreement is not approved.
Someone's at front door. Okay, my preference would be to have it as a condition of severance, Mr. Chair. So I'll leave that for the committee to deliberate on afterwards. I'd like a little more elaboration on variance C, please, by the proponent, and what would happen if that variance were not granted.
Yeah, so variance C is the reduction of the minimum required interior side yard setback of 7.5 to 2.9 meters. And I can't comment from an architectural standpoint, but I believe that vestibule is being proposed in order to, and I highlight the word believe, is to introduce an access that's going to be compatible with the addition being proposed at the rear. And I believe that the vestibule is also configured the way it is in order to facilitate improved accessibility. And if the variance is denied, the interior side yard of 7.5 meters would stand, and I think they'd have to look at a different way of accommodating access.
Okay. Could you take me through the 3.5 meter parking space length in D and tell me how that works?
Yeah, so 3.5 meters again. So and this is why an encroachment agreement is being pursued. I've discussed this with staff, and I've kind of suggested that applying for a variance and an encroachment might be somewhat redundant, but we're playing ball and applying for both. In my books, if you obtain a relief for the depth in parking, that's your approved parking space. I suppose practically speaking, a depth of 3.5 meters in parking is just not long enough for a parking space. So that's why the encroachment agreement would be pursued in order to capture the additional length that technically projects within to the right-of-way. And I should add that this right-of-way, this particular portion or the entirety of Sladen, seems to be kind of an unformalized condition. And part of the comments from the public have been to kind of criticize the condition of the roadway in general. I don't think it would be unreasonable if the city's public works department at some point in time in the future endeavor to kind of formalize and establish some curbing and whatnot along Sladen there. So parking, yeah, currently encroaches somewhat into the right of way. And
how deep is that right away in the vicinity of those parking spaces?
Sorry, I missed the first part of what you said.
How deep is the right of way in the vicinity of the parking spaces?
I'm not able to confirm that, unfortunately. I believe it's a standard width. Have a look at the survey.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the survey doesn't provide me with widths, but the widths look consistent with Malarctic. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I think I would have some concern approving the variance on the parking space, not knowing that an encroachment permit is forthcoming, because I think they go hand in hand.
I agree.
I would be comfortable if there was an encroachment permit coming. So from my perspective, I think that needs to be attached to that particular variance as a condition. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. McLean had some questions, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to follow up firstly on those six existing parking spaces, and I wonder why you need them or what they're used for or who uses them.
Yeah, Bill, are you able to weigh in on who uses those particular spaces?
Yes, currently we have our daycare families that use them. They have the right of way to prioritize during drop-off routines. But alternatively, they can also use the side parking or city parking to bring their children into the daycare. It's mostly just from a convenience perspective to allow the families with the younger children to be closest to the entrance during drop off.
Oh, your staff aren't parking in those 6 spaces.
No, my staff park at 640 Noranda. It's more we want to prioritize closest space to the entrance for our families with young children.
Okay. Mr. Wilder, you finished, Ms. McLean?
I just have a couple of more questions regarding the off-site parking at 640 Noranda. So if I understand, it's under a different ownership. The school is owned by the Academy Saint Laurent Inc. And then the other lot that the off-site parking is occurring on is owned by a numbered company.
Correct.
So a question to the city planner, is the property on Noranda used for the parking lot a permitted use? Is a parking lot a permitted use on that property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that is a permitted use. It's also worth to know that that parking space been there for quite some time.
Okay, and I guess back to the agent then, because they're under separate ownership, my concern would be that it could be sold off and then there's no there's no parking for the school.
Yeah, and that was a concern raised by one of the neighbors. My response to that would be that 641 Sladen requires a certain number of parking spaces under the bylaw. This variance would allow those required parking spaces to take place on 640 Noranda. If 640 Noranda was to be developed at some point in time in the future, which I don't think that's part of any plans, the 641 Sladen would become non-compliant. Therefore, development of 640 Noranda would probably be prohibited unless adequate parking for the school was supplied on the property.
So I don't have a comfort level then that unless there was a lease for the offsite parking that was registered on title or some form. So the variance allows the offsite parking, but there's no other than the non-compliance of the school if that parking doesn't continue, and then we're back to square one. So I guess I'm having some kind of comfort level, and without a lease or some kind of formal agreement that would be registered on title. I'll just leave it at that point.
I can speak to that fact if you like. The Saint Laurent Academy owns the school building. 640 Noranda, as mentioned, is owned by a numbered company. The numbered company, however, is owned by Saint Laurent Academy. There is a lease agreement between Saint Laurent Academy and the parking lot since the purchase was made. And that lease agreement is in detail specific to support the parking for staff and clientele. I understand, ma'am, your concerns and your reservations, and I would be happy if that a recommendation or that criteria was indicated should our request be approved, that these two properties or the school must have the parking lot adjacent to the recommendations and to meet the severance or the purpose of the minor variance. I have no concern with that. If I can, I'll tell you a little bit of our background, that without the parking lot, Saint Laurent Academy could not sustain its business. could not sustain its clientele nor its staff. So from a business standpoint, I understand it probably does not give you the reassurance that you require, but we cannot sustain ourselves in running a private school without having that 0.5 acre attached to our building.
How long is the lease for?
The lease is 5 + 5, sir.
5 + 5, and we don't have a copy of that in our file, I take it?
We can provide it, sir. It wasn't requested by me, but
I think that would probably be useful for us to have that.
definitely. And we also have proof of paying, taxes accordingly to that lease.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, if I can just add, staff did request confirmation that 640 Noranda had affiliated ownership with 641 Slayton, and that was provided.
And that's been confirmed?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. McLean, anything more?
I don't think so, other than my understanding would be that if it's under separate owners' names, that they could be conveyed separately. And I guess that's a concern I have. Is there any reason why the lot at 640 Noranda couldn't be put in the name of the academy, and then confirm then that the use would go hand in hand?
Gentlemen, another one?
Yeah, I have no concern if that would be a recommendation under your guidelines for accepting our minor variance. At the time, the only reason that we did put the ownership under a numbered company, it was a transaction that happened like in a point in time. Both actually the school building and Noranda were under the ownership of numbered companies. So they have transitioned over the last 4 years. And yes, I can definitely incorporate the parking lot to provide even more assurances to the members here today that the ownership will be under one company.
That would be helpful. How soon can you provide us with that information?
As soon as you provide me, sir, your recommendations, I can just it'll all depend on the legal time that is required to do so.
Okay.
If
Mr.
I
Wild?
could just,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Clare.
Sorry to interrupt. The properties aren't immediately adjacent to one another. So just so that we don't kind of proceed assuming that would fully address the committee members' concerns. My understanding, not being a lawyer though, would be that separate property would still be separately conveyable or developable.
Okay.
Just wanting to add that.
All right.
I'd also like to add when the time is right, just to respond to committee member Wildman's concern about the encroachment agreement.
Okay. Mr. Wilder, you had a comment or question? You're muted. I can't hear you, Mr. Wilder. You're muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yep.
I have a few questions actually. So first question to the city planner. The current property is zoned institutional 1A, I1A. The parking lot, the school was bought in 2005. In terms of permitting off-site parking, permitting this lot to be used as a parking lot, I just wanted a little history here in terms of when was this established? Was this established with the previous use of this property before 2005? How many, to Mr. Clare, how many parking spaces are on this lot? I mean, it's being used for faculty. It's being used for, I am assuming, parents as well. The big concern by the next door neighbor that I can see is that parents choose not, especially in winter, not to stop at the lot, drop their child off and let the child go into the school. They want the closest point to the school to drop the child off. And I can understand, I can appreciate, having gone by the property, especially in winter with snow removal, how the cars are all all in a line. This concerns me. There's obviously a number of traffic issues here, which relate to this application certainly, but maybe we can start with a little history on this lot that's being used for parking for the planner.
Would you like me to answer the questions, Mr. Clare, or would you like to address the questions?
Well, maybe Ms. Carvajal can explain a little history on the zoning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that the zoning is also institutional one. I wouldn't have a lot of information on when the use of the parking has been established. Perhaps Mr. Cocalares has more information, saying, and he could perhaps explain how when the school was used, perhaps that parking lot was also established as well at the same time.
Yeah, and Mr. Cocaliaris might have more background. What I'd like to weigh in on with respect to the permitted use of the off-site parking was that I would assume that this was established at the time the variance was approved in 2011. That's all I can kind of weigh in on that. Bill?
Yes, thank you. The property, as you mentioned, was purchased in 2005. A few years prior, École Montfort was established at that school. École Montfort outgrew its space. It had close to my knowledge from Councillor Legendre at the time, over 500 students, and it outgrew its school building. And as you may know, it moved to another location, rebuilt further up on Montreal Road. Councillor Legendre, as he knew that I was looking for a location, I had a relationship with the Saint Laurent complex on Côté Street, and I had another location further down by Beechwood Cemetery. He knew that I was looking at amalgamating the location, and during 2004, we were seeking locations. He brought me to the building of École Montfort, or previously owned École Montfort, and indicated that the building was vacant for a year. They outgrew their space, and it would be a good fit for Saint Laurent Academy under the counselor's guidance and consultation. To amalgamate my two locations on this site. Now, at that point, sir, the École Montfort was offering daycare and kindergarten all the way through grade 8, to my understanding. The property was 1 acre and had the parking lot adjacent. The same drop off at the front of the building is it was the main entrance, so that's sustained to the same as we have it today. The parking lot on the side, even though it's a different pin, it was used for both staff and parents parking. Less staff on the side of 640 Noranda. More parents were dropping off, were parking at the front through Noranda. Now, further to my understanding is that this building also had access to the parking lot, to the adjacent, park, that they were also using that lot as well. They did have also the small building on the parking lot, which is washrooms and change rooms. They had back then also a waiting pool, and we took the initiative to also maintain and clean the parking lot as we're using it for parking. But to answer your question, is yes, it did exist. Now, when we went through our minor variance or severance of the property, let me take it one step back. When I purchased the École Montfort from the Ottawa Public School Board with the support and consultation of Councillor Legendre at the time. The purchase was was 2 pins, but in one purchase. So if you take a look at our original purchase agreement with the Ottawa Public School Board, we purchased both the school building and the parking lot as it was utilized from the public board as, you know, one service, because they were also required to use the parking. Now, when we went and asked for a severance because we were not using the back lot, we asked the city what is expected by us to do the severance. So the city at that time, in consultation with the city, they indicated that the 640 Noranda, as it was a separate pin, and severing the back piece. So the school piece is about an acre. The side to the school that we severed it, straight line, is another acre that has been sold to Brazil, where they're currently completing the construction of their retirement home. We had some expectations that we would have some staff parking and some client parking according to the capacities of our building on our 1 acre school building, as we did, and we met those requirements as they were outlined by the severance. Now, only about a few years later, I don't want to go through unnecessary details, but Brazil did not find a need for building, and that was their purpose, building on the parking lot. They wanted to stay focused on that 1 acre, and they asked me if I wanted to purchase back the parking lot, as I did, and at that time we went through a purchase agreement under the said numbered company. So if I can recap, my understanding of the parking lot was always part of the school building to serve its building. It had an additional space in the back. At our capacity, we don't bring in 500. That's not our capacity as a school. So we don't have a clientele that we want to serve of 500. Our clientele maximum capacity is at 350. So we've always sustained at maximum capacity of 350. And if I can also address, sir, you mentioned you went down to see the building and the traffic and how things are moving ahead. I take it extremely seriously to ensure that the safety of my students and families during drop off, and I'm always in consultation with the City of Ottawa. I've had a consultation last year to come into our major routines during drop off and pickup to consult us with parking that is legally available to our clients. And when they did come in November and did the consultation with us, they did mention that we have ample parking available, not only on our site, but also on the city site, which I mentioned. There's 44 parking spaces, and that's a number that is in my head. 44 parking spaces that are available on the street that are not being utilized. So we could even utilize street parking, but they're not being utilized. Now, if you're talking about congestion during the morning, we're always having, to ensure that parents are following the strict guidelines of our school. It's for our safety. We increase monitors outside. We consult with the City of Ottawa. I'm always like, every neighbor's concern is my concern. Safety is first, primarily my concern, and has been always addressed and consulted with the City of Ottawa. On our last City of Ottawa consultation, there was no concern during our major traffic time in providing recommendations as to what we need to do. we are the first ones that are calling the city if we see someone parking, illegally, going to the wrong direction just from their convenience. We reroute them on our parking lot, and we call, persistently. If it's a same client, we will call them because we want to ensure that we have our families, safe and very aware of our guidelines. We've even consulted this year with the City of Ottawa Traffic in reviewing any recommendations that they have for us to put in place in our policies before starting September with regards to COVID-19 and physical distancing. So we are taking a very proactive approach, sir.
Right. Question. This is one last question of interest. Then how many spaces, legal spaces? That is, I guess we're looking at 5.2 meters legal length for spaces on the parking lot. And how many of those spaces? How are they broken? Is it all for staff, or is it so many reserved for staff and the rest for parents?
Yes, we have spaces allocated for staff, which are in the back, which is about 12 spaces in the back are for us for staff. Now the remainder spaces are open, available. We have never had our parking lot at full capacity, so there's never been a congestion in the parking lot. We've always had traffic monitors to ensure the smooth transition of our students. Now, I have to tell you, sir, that there is, a concern a bit when it comes to, COVID-19, because we went ahead and invested in, buses for our school. Now, we're still awaiting, the guidelines with COVID, as there have been there's still not clear guidelines as to school busing and so on. So where we were going to drop the ratio of parents personally dropping off versus having a combination of parents and buses, that's undetermined because of COVID-19 at the time.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, sir.
All right, gentlemen, is that the, Mr. Clare, is that the sum total of the presentation? I would imagine.
Just a couple quick points.
Go ahead.
A couple quick, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just interject for a second? When the property was severed in 2011, where was the parking for the required parking for the school, and what is the number of required parking spaces for the school?
I can't comment on the number of required parking spaces for the school. What I can comment on off the top, and I don't know if staff can confirm that, is that this was a question from Member Wilder, is that there are 64 parking spaces at 640 Sladen. So there's quite a few there. And I believe in the course of my review, in the preliminary stages, that was well beyond, coupled with the 6 on site, that was well beyond what was required for 641 Sladen. My apologies, and probably more than you'd see for a similar school around the city of a similar size. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to confirm, the amount of parking spaces required is 29 spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, and that would have been included on the site plan, which I could have looked at. Just coming back to a question of committee member Wildman's through you, Mr. Chair. There was a question about conditioning the encroachment permit. And my understanding, although it's only in comment form right now, there is a comment within the site plan comments, the second round, that advises an encroachment agreement will be a requirement. So my understanding is that the intent, and I recognize Soleil is not the file lead on that particular site plan approvals file, is that that encroachment agreement, if it's not obtained prior to site plan approvals, would be a condition of site plan approvals.
Thank you. Ms. McLean, you have a question?
Well, just to reiterate that in 2011, when this property was severed, one would think that there was zoning compliance for the parking, among other things. And so where was the parking in 2011 for the school at the time the lot was severed?
Yeah, I can help you with that, Mr. Clare. The parking lot, the parking spaces is where Mr. Clare showed our prospective building to be added in the back of the school. It consisted of I think about 13 parking spaces, give or take, in that portion of the building, and then it had another 4 or 5 in the front of the building. Now the math is a bit off, so it's give or take on both ends. So again, when we got accepted, ma'am, from the severance for the severance of this property, we did not require that many parking spaces for the 1 acre building of the school. We just required, as mentioned by staff, 20 some parking spaces. So that was because we did not own the parking lot. It was owned by Brazil. And when we did purchase the parking lot, we started thinking about pushing back to providing our students and families more specialty spaces in our building, and that's the purpose of the expansion. In addition to recreation being important for our students, the spaces, the classroom spaces that were mentioned from Mr. Clare, it's not expanding on our enrollments, it's providing more specialty spaces in our building, which are like science rooms, music spaces, art spaces, so more specialty spaces, more spaces for our students to find resources to further enrich their programming.
All right, thank you. That's sufficient, Ms. McLean?
So just to be clear, the parking spaces where existing are where located where the new addition is now being proposed. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Oakesharo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back to the school buses for a moment. Maybe Mr. Cochlearis can answer. I realize you're not sure if you will be using them or not, but if you do use them, where is the boarding and the zone where the school buses would pull up and the kids would get on and off? Is that on Noranda or is that planned to be on Sladen?
That is similar to the routine, ma'am, that we have currently when it comes to field trips. So it is on Sladen. It's on the adjacent to our existing front park on Sladen. So currently, when we have about 3 or 4 buses that are picking up our students, they're not conflicting with the drop-off or the drive-through drop-off area, or they're not blocking the existing parking space in front of the building. They're adjacent to the daycare playground, which has a safe walkway to go from and to the bus from our front of the building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we have one of the neighbors who would like to speak to this matter. Mr. Lalonde, or I believe.
Yeah, this is Anne Lalonde. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've prepared.
What's your address, please?
672 Center Street.
Okay.
My husband and I reside at that address. We've been there for about 30 years. So we've been there like when Mall 4 School was there. Mm-hmm. So Mall 4 was using it a bit for the smaller children at the end before they moved because they needed more space. I'm just going to find the page. I was taking notes. I'm just going to find my page. So good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. Our main concern, my husband and I, is with the expansion of the academy, we're mostly concerned about the amount of space allocated to the schoolyard. It is already way too small. For this reason, the academy currently uses Forbes Public Park for all its outdoor activities, example, recess, gym, and other activities. The park is used by the academy from morning till late afternoon until the parents pick up their children. Forbes Public Park is not a schoolyard. It belongs to the community. Also, the park is located behind our property. However, we are unable to enjoy our yard when the students of the academy are at recess due to the noise level. The situation will become worse if the number of students increases due to the proposed expansion. We bought a house that is located behind a public park, not a schoolyard. The academy should consider moving to another location that has more green space. Why the academy thinks it can continue to use the park at its own leisure, we find it unreasonable. We hope the Committee of Adjustment will not approve the proposed changes, which are not in accordance with the city bylaws. Furthermore, the size of the current yard should be reviewed as it does not even accommodate the number of existing students. Thank you for the opportunity again to provide concerns. If the concerns I'm communicating cannot be addressed by this Committee of Adjustment, please let me know where I should direct them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. We're not really dealing with the adjacent park today. We're dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variances to the bylaw. But I understand your concerns. I have a question. Have you been in this? This is the park behind you is a city park.
Yes, it is.
And have you been in contact with Park and Recs at the city to discuss
Yes.
whether or not those kids should be in that park all day long and not on their own school property?
Yes, I have.
And the response in the city?
They said that because kids are allowed on the playground, but I didn't go any further. Mm-hmm. But the noise, also the swings, the structures. That's why I said the school shouldn't have access to the structures, because the swings are near my backyard, and the kids, when they go on the swing, it's a big game to look into my backyard. So when there's three
have you talked to your counselor about this?
Oh, I tried to. I wasn't able to reach him.
I'd suggest you talk to your counselor, seriously, and have your counselor set up a meeting with someone who represents Parks and Recs, and then you and your neighbors can sit down and discuss what you consider an inappropriate use of a public park. But we can't deal with that today.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your input.
You're welcome.
All right, I don't think, are there any other speakers? I don't believe so. Okay.
Just, if I may.
Very briefly, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention in relation to previous discussions that during the course of the severance in 2011, parking compliance appears to have been considered as variances were obtained. It appears as though those variances were obtained for on-site parking. Just wanted to add that piece of information.
All right. I think what we're going to do is reserve on this item so that we can discuss what we've heard today further. As I noted in the opening comments, the results or the decision will be available in about 10 days. All the rest of the members agreed to reserve this matter today. Okay, so we're going to reserve this item. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to item 3 on the agenda, 71 King George Street. I believe Allison Sterling is the agent.
Hi there.
Allison Sterling, now clerk.
Yes. I should.
I have to administer the oath because we don't have a stat deck for your application. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right. Please give us a brief presentation on your application.
Perfect. So my name is Allison Sterling. Married name is Clark. I am a project manager with the Sterling Group. And our address is 1148 Julia Court. That's in Ottawa, Ontario, K0A1T0. First, I'd like to thank the committee members for their time. We, the Sterling Group, represent the owner of 71 King George. This lot is a full lot on a plan of subdivision, and the homeowner wishes to build a detached dwelling on this vacant property. The property is zoned R3M and permits a detached dwelling today. We would echo the comments provided to us from the planning department in support of this application. The lot fabric of the street is comprised of single and semi-detached dwellings. Several single detached dwellings on the street are of similar lot width and area as to that we are proposing at 71 King George. Although the zoning bylaw requires a front yard setback of 6 meters, the setbacks of the dwellings abutting 71 King George, both beside and across the street, are less than 6 meters as well. You'll see from the plans that we're proposing just less than 4 meters. Despite the reduced rear yard setback we are requesting, the proposal will provide the required rear area, thus providing an adequate yard. Similarly, the reduced side yard setback will cause minimal impact, given that the side yard will maintain its functionality and the easterly side yard will provide access to the rear yard for maintenance. Again, many homes on the street, both beside us and across, provide a similar side yard to that which we are proposing. In summary, the proposal meets the intent of the R3M zone today and matches the fabric of the street. We welcome any questions that you may have.
Mr. Wilder, you have a question.
Yes, question I have is, this is I appreciate that they're very small, deep lots on the street. The history of this, you can just refresh my memory on this in terms of, was this lot, what was on this, I guess, was demolished, or was it actually attached to the adjacent property and severed? That's my first question. Secondly, your request to build to 8.5 meters rather than 8 meters, I don't really see a need for that. You can certainly, dig a slightly deeper foundation. I've looked at the other homes on the street. I don't see any need for variance C.
So with regards to the history of the lot, when we received this project from the owners of the property, we were made aware that it was a vacant lot. It has been a lot on this plan 341 for a number of years. There is no severance application that we could find. With regards to your question about height, so you'll see in the latest elevations that were provided to committee members that the height is 7.6 meters right now to the midpoint of the roof. This request for the height was done out of an abundance of caution. We've gone down this road before where, by the time we get to building permit stage, depending on the grade of the land, the height ends up being a little bit higher. And as a result, in the past, we've had to come back for a 0.1 meter height request. So this was, as I said, just done out of abundance of caution. I agree that, well, we are at 7.6 meters in height and the bylaw allows 8. I'm sure we will be under it. It's just because we had a bad situation in the past.
Mr. Wilder? You're muted, Mr. Wilder. You're muted. Still.
Is that okay?
Okay. Ms. McLean?
With respect to the easterly side yard, it's showing as 1.2 meters, but there seems to be a projection into that. Is that right, or?
There is a small projection into the, and I'm looking at the site plan as well myself. There is a small projection into the side yard. I believe that's just from the, like a door out of the garage.
So I don't actually believe that that will extend out into the side yard. It's just to show that there is a door leaving, for an option to leave the garage through a door.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just to answer Committee Member Wilder, the lot has been vacant since at least 1958.
So you're saying that the your built height to the midpoint of the roof was going to be 7.6 meters, which means you're under the limit.
7.668 to be exact.
Okay. I'd be, quite frankly, I'm not going to support variance C. This is a new build and you should be able to build, since your design is already showing that you're at 7.6 meters. I really don't think we need the leeway to 8.5. Whoever you have as a contractor to put in the foundation should know what they're doing. Be able to
Dig
measure
deeper.
height. Yeah.
Understood.
So you're, if you're amenable to deleting variance C, I'd be happy to, I'll have to ask the rest of the members, but I'd be happy to grant the application.
Yes, I think that's fine. I think in a previous situation, we were at, call it 7.9. And so when we did have to come back, we were closer to that 8 meter, but I think given that we're at 7.6, we should be able to make this work.
Okay. Any other comments from the rest of the members? Is everyone prepared to grant this application with variance C deleted? All in favor? All right. Your application is the amended application is approved. Variance C has been deleted and the rest have been approved. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Sterling.
Thanks very much. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep. As long as you get paid. Thank you very much. The next item I'll deal with today is item 4 on the agenda, 7 McLean. I believe we have Ms. Goche as the agent.
Hello, my name is Timothy Bede. I'm with Vote 10 Planning. I'll be acting as
okay. All right, Mr. Bede, I have to read you the oath because we don't have a stat deck. Okay. So, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right. All right. This is an application to provide a reduced lot area and an increased maximum walkway width for the construction of a new 3-story, 7-unit low-rise apartment dwelling. The existing 2-story detached dwelling and detached garage are to be demolished. So if you give us your presentation, please.
Mr. Chair and Committee, my name is Timothy Bede. I'm from Vote 10 Planning and Design. I'm here as agent of the applicant and property manager. So Olivia Goche with 2B is also here joining us. Also with Vote 10 here today is Brian Casagrande representing this file. As you've mentioned, and Vote 10 is at 396 Cooper in downtown Ottawa. As you mentioned, there are 2 minor variances associated with the construction of the 3-story, 7-unit residential infill building. And we're here today to just demonstrate how the application adheres to the 4 tests and represents good planning. I'll give you a little bit of a history on the file, just to get you up to speed. An application for a minor variance for this project was previously submitted and adjourned, placed on hold, while the application could go through the concurrent site plan control review, technical review and vetting from city staff. And the site plan control was submitted in January 2020. Gone through extensive review now, and staff is comfortable and supportive with the application, and we are nearing the end of the site plan control application process.
So there won't be any more variances down the road.
No, the design and layout of the building is finalized at this point, and they're just working through the procedure now to finalize the site plan control.
Okay. Thank you.
In terms of public consultation that has already occurred, along with the mandatory pre-consult application held at the city City and Community Association. We have also held public meetings, the latest of which was December 18th, 2019, which was attended by the Community and Community Association. There's ongoing communication with the community to date to continue to keep them updated and receive feedback on this application. So I'll go to the next slide. The subject property is an interior lot consisting of 386 square meters, 15.6 meters of frontage along McLean, and a lot depth of 24.7 meters. It is currently occupied, as you've mentioned, by a single detached dwelling and an accessory building, which is proposed to be demolished. I'll go to the next slide. The zoning on the site is R4T, subzone T, in the Ottawa zoning bylaw. As you know, the intent of the residential fourth density zone is to accommodate predominantly low-rise residential built form, such as this proposal, with a maximum height generally up to 4 stories in the general urban area. Next slide, please. The subject property is within the general urban area on the official plan, the designated general urban area, and similar to the R4T zone in the general urban area, the city permits and encourages a wide range of choices of building typologies and a maximum of 4 stories. Next slide, please. We'll go to the next one as well. So the subject property is currently well served by various mobility and transportation options. It's within 800 meters of the Carling LRT station, which will be part of the phase 2 Trillium Line extension. Next slide, please. And it is also well served by existing car share options within the community within close proximity. Next slide, please. The community context in terms of uses and built form is quite variable. The subject property is noted on this aerial image as number 1. Number 7 with the blue outlines indicates the various residential and institutional built forms within the immediate context of the subject property, which range in heights and massing from 3 to 7 stories, with 3 and 4 story multi-unit apartment buildings located along McLean, directly west, and also in close proximity at the end of the street there in a 4-story multi-unit building. There are also multiple parks, community amenities, employment opportunities, and spaces within the immediate context of the community. Next slide, please. The character of the street is currently quite variable. So you can see here, the subject property is currently a 2-story single detached home with driveway and parking accessed from McLean Street. Directly west is the 4-story multi-unit that I had referenced previously. The portion of that property to the west that is abutting the subject property is a surface parking lot. You can see the brick wall there that indicates the parking lot and a screening to the subject property. Along McLean and in close proximity are various 3-story townhouse buildings, and with varied and different types of front yard and parking accesses. Next slide, please. This slide just better illustrates the existing condition to the west with the surface parking lot and the existing condition to the east with a fairly large landscaped buffer between the subject property and its immediate neighbor. Next slide, please. And again, this is to illustrate the varied built form within the area. Next slide. So the proposed development, it is a 4-story. It's 3-story with an atrium and rooftop access point. So we're classifying as 4-story, 13.2 meter building with 7 units, building footprint of 161 square meters. It contains, in terms of unit typology, a mix of bachelor, 2 and 3 bedroom units. And it has been designed specifically to respect and complement the community, reflect the lot fabric and the surrounding area, and respect the lot area and size. Aside from the building height measures at 13.2 meters, aside from the rooftop access, which we can see on the next slide. The building actually, for the majority of the built form, massing measures at 10.6 meters, which is significantly below the permitted maximum height within this zone of 14 meters. Other than that, all zoning provisions, aside from the two that have been requested, all zoning provisions have been adhered to, including height, setbacks, small property lines from the roof structure to the building face, landscaped area, amenity area, bicycle parking. They're all met or exceeded. And the building also provides a substantial communal rear yard amenity space. We can go to the next slide. That you can see here of 17 square meters with patio, barbecue, substantial landscaping, which was a direct outcome of communication with the residents and nearby neighbors to provide more of a privacy screen from the rear yard area. In terms of facade and materiality, the choices include brick, masonry, dark paneling on the front facade, a selection of cladding and colors to provide a visual amenity as well as respect to the existing materiality within the community and the character. You can see here there's a access door along the western side, which provides access to enclosed bicycle parking, which 6 have been provided, as well as garbage, refuse, and collection. And
any vehicle parking on the site?
I'm sorry?
Any vehicle parking on the site?
There's
No?
one vehicle parking, a visitor parking space provided within the, it's in the location of the existing driveway and vehicle parking area. It's in the interior side yard to the west. You can see it on this rendering. It's a slightly extended that leads then into the walkway that goes back to the garbage enclosure and bicycle parking.
Right.
And moving on to the next slide. So the last item that I'll discuss, and then we can just quickly go through the remaining elevations. The rooftop patio is accessed from the 4th story portion of the building, which is in a sense more of a mezzanine, providing access to the rooftop patio, which is adheres to the zoning bylaw provisions in terms of setback and screening from the building edge and therefore the surrounding community, ensuring that there's a adequate distancing there. And we'll just go through the elevation so we can go through the next few slides if you don't mind, showcasing the materiality, the building step back in height from the 13 to the 10.6. The building also, as you can see on the front and rear entrance, has lifts and for accessibility features. It has the fenestration window patterns that provide eyes on the street and provide for a positive interface with McLean. Go to the next slide, please. And the next slide, please. And here's the west side elevation as well, showcasing the access door on the ground level there to the bicycle parking and garbage collection and storage. Next slide, please. And this is the rooftop plan with the access to the rooftop patio, which I should mention will be provided solely for the residents of the 3rd floor. It will not be communal space, but accessed only by those residents in the top floor unit. Next slide, please. So I'll just go over quickly how the proposal adheres to the 4 tests of the minor variance. The general intent and purpose of the official plan is maintained. The proposed development conforms to the official plan policies, including the policies which permit low-rise development up to 4 stories. It's an infill and compact development that's respectful of the community character and provides transitions to the immediately abutting residential properties. It also adheres to the urban design and compatibility criteria of section 2.51 and 4.11. Including massing and height, it's considered appropriate, compatible, given the size of the site, the existing built form within the immediate area, and the design there. And the zoning bylaw, the general intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. As mentioned, regarding the size of the building footprint in the lot, although a minor variance is required for decrease in minimum lot size and increase in walkway, the building is still able to maintain 57% lot area for landscaping, larger than required rear yard at 125.5 square meters, and exceeds all building setback and amenity area requirements. The building height, as mentioned, is significantly lower than for the majority of the building, especially on those sensitive interfaces to the rear and eastern side yard, significantly lower than required or permitted, providing for adequate transition and mitigating any possible negative impacts that may occur from shadowing or noise or overlook. It's also important to note, and although not improved and not approved as of yet, but just a consideration, the ongoing R4 review for the City of Ottawa indicates a direction that the city will be taking where minimum lot size will be tied more closely to the density or intensification proposed. So a building of 8 or fewer units will have a minimum lot size of 300 meters squared, which this building would adhere to. Obviously not a part of the current policy and regulatory framework, but
no, it certainly isn't. No,
it's not, but it is something that the city is considering, and this building would then adhere to.
Lots of things get considered.
It's true, it's true. The building has been designed though to respect the lot size, specifically designed. And in terms of the walkway width, the purpose of the provision is to minimize the amount of hard landscaping for walkway width. This street has a very variable front yard conditions with significant hard landscaping, significant walkways, parking in areas, and therefore we don't believe that the increase in the walkway width, the minor increase, will have any negative effect on the character. The variance is minor, 14% reduction in lot size. It will likely not be noticeable in the building, as we've mentioned, can still provide the required amenity space and landscaping area, mitigating any undue adverse impacts on the community or the residents. The variance is desirable for the appropriate development of the property. It provides additional housing opportunities within the community. It's well designed, low rise, respectful and complementary design that is in keeping with the existing character and the future and planned function of the area. It's also considered an important investment as Ottawa intensifies, especially in close proximity to LRT, in something that's often referenced as the missing middle. So low-rise, walk-up style residential multi-units that can provide for kind of a gentle or more modest density increases within our established communities. And just a final note on the walkway with increased permission request. It provides for a more functional and usable access to the rear or to the side yard refuse collection and bicycle storage area. And it, as mentioned previously, it butts the existing parking lot for the multi-unit building to the west. So in that sense, no negative impacts due to this slight increase are anticipated. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You're aware of Miss Anastasiopoulos's concerns. She sent correspondence in.
Yes, yeah, we were.
And she heard to Tracy had concerns with rezoning. Street cannot support development out of character, keep the neighborhood charm. Any response to her concerns?
Yes, the permitted use of multi-unit residential building up to the 14.5 meters is currently permitted within the existing zoning framework. Yeah. So we're not asking for any major rezoning or change in use. We're asking for minor reduction in the lot width to accommodate a modest and appropriately scaled building, including building height with considered transitions to the existing community. The character of the street, we believe, has been retained and promoted through the provision of hard and soft landscaping along the front property line. Excuse me. A single parking space located in the existing position of the current use, as well as materiality, window placement, and overall design that is well represented within the community and not overwhelming in our opinion.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bede. Any of the members have any comments, questions? I'm prepared to grant the application as presented. Rest of the members, all in favor? All right, Mr. Bede, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Your application is approved. Good luck with the project.
Chair and committee.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda will be item number 5. Excuse me, 47 and 49 Ellis Street. And we need to, we have a stat deck for this. Is the agent available?
I am.
Okay. All right. And could you identify yourself, please?
My name is Feroz Wahab,
Thank you. And your address?
49 Ella.
Okay. If you'd like to make your presentation, please, just very briefly.
Sure. I think I provided a copy of the draft for our plan, if you can put it up. Yeah, that's it. So I am here today as an owner and an agent on behalf of my neighbor who was here and unfortunately had to leave for a meeting. So I reside in 49 Ella. My neighbor resides in 47 Ella, Ben Sherman, and we're seeking approval from the committee to sever the property into 2 lots to permit separate ownership and municipal addresses. The lots are shown on the attached draft 4R. There's part 1 and part 2. Both lots are essentially identical in width, in depth, and in area.
I think Ms. McLean had some questions regarding the jog at the front of your building. And
Sure,
so,
yeah.
Ms. McLean?
I just wondered if there was any structures under that's a garage wall, I understand.
That is the extent of the brick. It was actually identified by the planner because the original plan that was submitted had the line going straight through. And then just there's a little jog in the brick right there. So that was picked up and changed by the surveyor.
So it's just the brick of the garage. There's no structure underneath or above it?
No, it's the brick of the garage. Because the garage the brick sits on top essentially of it extends beyond the foundation below.
Would you have an elevation at all of that front elevation at all?
I do not have that with me, no. I can take a photo if you would like and I can send it.
Well, I think I'll accept your assurances that there's no structure underneath or above.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
You're aware of the conditions
Yes, I am.
at the independent services and the JUMA. Frankly, I don't know why the department is asking for a noise study to be registered on title. Perhaps they could respond. I'm a little confused.
Mr. Chair, I believe it's not a noise study, but it's a noise agreement. And the reason for this is because the house is approximately 30 meters away from Fifth Avenue, which is a collector road.
So what is this? What a noise agreement is simply what on title?
Yes, effectively, is to sort of warn future purchasers that there could be or they could be higher than normal noise due to the collector road at Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, certainly not getting higher than normal noise on Ella Street. I'm familiar with Ella Street. Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Are we all in favor of this consent as explained by the owner? Okay. Good luck, and I hope the bricks don't fall off your garage. You don't have to go back again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Oh. The next item we'll deal with is item number 6, 38 Ossington Avenue. And Mr. Robinson, I believe, is the agent.
Yes, I'm here.
And we're going to have to go through the oath.
I already did that.
On Ossington? No.
I did it on all of them.
Oh, all right. Okay. I don't have to go through this 4 times with you. That's good. All
Sorry,
right.
Mr. Chair, we do not have signed statutory declarations. Mr. Robinson, did you email them into our office?
Yes, I did that. I went over it with Grant on Friday and then I emailed it on Saturday to him.
Okay, thank you.
So we're okay with this, I think. We have paper.
I'll confirm with the office, but we should be fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, Mr. Robinson, please proceed. This is a minor variance to permit reduced rear, easterly, interior side yard, side and front yard setbacks, and to permit a reduced lot area and rear yard area. It is proposed to demolish parts of the existing duplex dwelling and to construct a second floor addition to convert the dwelling into a 2-story single detached dwelling. So please proceed.
Could the presentation material be put up, please? Next. Okay, so this is the picture on the left is the view along Grosvenor. The area with the red roof is to be removed. The next picture on the right is a front view of the home. The home is on the right with the car in the driveway, and then there's an existing 2-story plus peaked roof house to the east, which is on the left-hand side. As indicated in the description, the proposal is to do some minor modifications to the house. It is a duplex now, and the intent is to fill in portions of the second floor, so they are equal in size to the first floor, and it will be converted from a duplex to a single-family home. Next slide, please. This is the view along Grosvenor, and that is the area that with that red roof that will be removed. The photo on the right is a view looking south along Grosvenor, and there is the house to the south has a driveway that is immediately abutting the rear yard of our client's property. Next slide, please. This is the survey plan of the property. So Ossington is to the north, Grosvenor is to the west. There is a porch along Ossington, and that will be maintained. The areas where the addition are to occur on the second floor would bring the setback of the second floor in line with the first floor. That is one of the setbacks. There is also the intent near the bottom right of the survey plan where the garage is shown. There's a small area between the west wall of the garage and the east wall of the house that is an open area now, and the owners would like to fill that in from the rear wall of the house going towards Ossington.
And I take it that's what triggers variance A, C, and E, correct?
Correct. Correct.
If you could explain those.
Yes. So variance A is for rear yard setback. The normal rear yard setback in a corner lot abutting an interior side yard is 1.2 meters. The garage itself is 0.14 meters from the rear lot line. The remainder of the house is, I believe, 2.37 meters from the rear lot line. So that's not the issue. It's the garage, which is 0.14 meters. The lot area requirement in this area is 270 square meters. This is an existing lot. It's 267.8 square meters. So that's variance B. Variance C is for the garage. The normal setback is 1.2 meters. The garage itself is on the lot line, so that requires a variance. It's an existing condition. Variance D is for the front yard setback. The front yard setback is to match the setback of the building immediately adjacent to the east, and that's 4.12 meters. The existing ground floor of the building is 3.53 meters back, and we're intending to have the second floor also at 3.53 meters. So that is the reason for variance D. Variance E is related to the requirement to provide a yard that is in the rear yard and the interior side yard And it's to be 25% of the lot depth multiplied by 30% of the lot width. That gives you an area of about 20.09 square meters. Because the garage is so close to the rear lot line, and that is the rear yard setback, we can only count a very thin sliver of land, 14 centimeters wide, all the way along the rear lot line for that calculation. And that comes up to 2.13 meters. I believe if the garage wasn't there, we would be compliant. So those are the variances that are being sought. The neighbors, the owner has spoken with the neighbors to the south and to the east. And he has also spoken to some of the other neighbors in the area. And we've also, he's communicated with the two neighbors who have made, I think have provided you with comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Ms. McLean, I believe you had some direction for the applicant regarding variances A, C, and E.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, can I just interrupt? We will need the verbal statutory declarations on these files because the signs had to be posted and the stat deck has to be as of today.
So we'll do this right now.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
Okay. That's one. There's a few more to come.
Okay.
Continue. Please continue. Ms. McLean. Regarding variances A, C, and E.
Mr. Robinson, would there be any, would you have any issue if the committee were to approve the application if they tied variance A, C, and E to the life of the garage?
I don't have any issue with that.
And then could you clarify as well, variance B? I thought I heard you say reduced lot area 267.8 and our notice is showing 267.5. So.
From the survey plan at 267.8, but if 267.5 is in the notice, that's fine as well.
Okay. So we can leave that as, that's the lot size. You're happy with that? That's fine?
Yep.
Okay. And you're all right with tying those three variances to the life of the garage. There are no conditions. The department's in support. You're aware of the comments from residents. The questions via email, I believe they went to you.
Yes, and we've the owner. I don't think he's on, but he was wanting to be on, but he had to go away to with his child who has to go to, I think, the drop-in COVID testing clinic.
Oh.
Yeah. So he has spoken with both of those people.
Okay. All right. Any comments from any of the other members on this application? Are we prepared to approve this application now that we've had the clarification and the amendment to include A, C, and E and tie those three variances to the life of the garage and the property? We're good? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, apologies for the interruption. It appears we have a speaker on the list, Mr. Josh Smith.
Oh, he's the owner.
Oh, my apologies.
He's getting tested. Not good. Anyway. All right. We've unanimously agreed that this application will be approved. So good luck with your project.
Thank you.
And don't get up because you're on the next one. And we have to do this again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm this is for 280 levy? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right. So we're dealing with item number 7 on the agenda, which is minor variances to permit a reduced lot width and reduced lot area to allow for construction of a new 3-unit triplex building. And regarding the revisions, Mr. Robinson, they should read to permit a reduced lot width of 17.68 meters, not 7.62, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot width of 18 meters, not 12. And B has been altered to say to permit a reduced lot area of 484.3 square meters, not 215.4, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 540 square meters, not 360.
Yes.
Okay. And those revised reductions are actually less than was originally asked for. So please proceed.
Thank you. This property on the south side of Levy in Vanier currently has a single family home on the property. So this is the front view of the property. On the left, the photo on the right is a view of the property with its driveway leading to the backyard. Next photo, please. This is a view taken from the driveway looking back towards Levy Avenue. Across the road, there's a variety of properties of single family homes. There's some duplexes. On the block, there's a variety of single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. The zoning in the area, the whole block has a zoning minimum lot width of 18 meters and a minimum lot area of 540 square meters, allowing up to low-rise apartments. And this property is the largest one on the block. So it appears to me that many of the existing uses on the property, on the block, don't meet the current zoning, which is an R4B zone. There is a tree that you can see on the left that is to be retained. It's very close to the lot line with the property to the east. The photo on the right is a rear yard view of the property as it exists now. There are some sheds along the rear yard of the property behind. And then there is fencing on the right-hand side along, which would be on the property to the west. Next photo, please. The photo on the left is the property to the east, 286 Levy. It's a single-family home. On the right is a duplex at 278 Levy. Next slide, please. This is the survey plan. So you can see the existing single family home on the property. You can also see some of the lot fabric in the area. The property is 17.68 meters in width. We are proposing, it has, if you go to the site plan, which I believe is the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. The front yard setback requirement is 6 meters. We're providing 6.13. The rear yard setback, it's based on a percentage of lot depth. The required is 7.66 meters. We're providing 9.29. The side yard setback on the east side, which is the right-hand side of the diagram, the requirement is 1.5 meters. We're providing 2.05. On the west side, it's also 1.5. We're providing 6.18. We're providing 3 parking spaces. The maximum building height is 11 meters. We're providing 10.75. We have staff support for this, and other than the required lot width and lot area, all the other performance standards are met. The owner has discussed the application with the immediate neighbors on either side and then neighbors across the road. He's also been in discussions and email dialogue with the neighbor at the rear, and we're agreeable to having 1.8 meter high wood privacy fence along that, that shared rear lot line. And then the fence would also extend along the east side to line up with the rear of the building to the east. Along the west side, there's already existing fencing. I provided these drawings to the community association representative, and had they seem to be fine with it. Next screen, please. This is the front view of the property. So the driveway would be on the right-hand side. There'd be an entrance to the ground floor unit at the front of the building. Flat roof and zoning compliant in terms of height. Next slide, please. This is the view along the east side. So not the driveway side, but the side, the east side of the property. Next slide, please. This is the rear elevation of the building. So there's also an exit at the rear. Next slide, please. This is the view from the driveway side of the building. Next slide, please. This is the existing streetscape. So you have 286 Libby on the left, the existing building in the center, and the existing duplex on the right at 278 Libby. And next slide, please. And this is the proposed streetscape. The dashed red outline is the existing building, and there is a the top of parapet is shown, and also the where the building maximum height is measured. It's 25 centimeters lower than the maximum building height. Next slide, please. This is a front perspective of the building. And a rear perspective. And this is a diagram showing turning movements from the parking space closest to the building to exit down the driveway. And oh, thank you. And this is the block and the surrounding area in terms of their existing lot widths and lot areas. The subject property is 17.7 meters wide. I believe the next, and the requirement is 18 meters for a triplex. And I believe in this area, a single family home needs to be on a 15-meter wide lot. And as you can see, there's a range of widths. Many of them are 12.2 meters or 40 feet for singles and duplexes. The duplex next to it is only 13.9 meters. There's a triplex on the corner that's only 12.2 meters and 336 square meters. There's a fourplex behind that that's the same size. This indicates that this lot is the widest lot, and I believe the largest lot in the area, and we're just asking for a small variance on lot width and also a relatively small variance on lot area. And we are providing we're meeting the rest of the performance standards. This, the Committee of Adjustment did approve a triplex application on the north side of Le Joie. I believe in early 2019. It's the triplex at 317 Le Joie. It's 11.32 meters wide in width and 346 square meters in area, and that triplex has been built. I believe that's the end of the presentation material.
Leave this up. Can we have that last slide up again? So in your estimation, Mr. Robinson, the triplex is not out of place.
That is correct.
This part of the neighborhood, given the mix of housing within a block of the subject site.
That is correct.
There seemed to be quite frankly, a predominance of triplexes and duplexes and a lot less singles.
Yes.
Okay. And you're only as you've stated, your only requests for relief are lot width and area. All the other performance standards are met.
Correct.
Okay. Any of the members have any questions for Mr. Robinson before we move on to the public delegations? No? Okay.
None, Mr. Chair, but I just would note we've lost a member here for the committee. Doesn't affect quorum, but we have lost a member.
Where is Mr. Wilder? Oh, we'll have to move on. We have at least one owner, or one neighbor that wishes to speak to this. Mr. Egan, are you there? You're muted, Mr. Egan. Can't hear you.
How's that?
That's fine. Please proceed.
Okay. Hi, thanks. I'm at 285 Richelieu. I'm just behind to the east, I guess.
Okay.
So basically, this would be a big box wall blocking my view from the yard. I don't know if I had submitted some material to with a few pictures. It shows the property at 317 La Joie. That's basically the same, I guess. You can see the person's side yard view is reduced to a big blank wall. Like when you say there's a lot of other duplexes and things in this area, yeah, but they're mostly converted houses. So the character of the neighborhood is single homes, you know, by visual look. This, I don't know, it just seems there's one at 317 La Joie. There's another variance, what they're called minor variances, but they're pretty intruding into the neighborhood by height, at least. There's another one at the corner of La Joie and Levi that they're redoing. I don't know what, I haven't seen the plans for that, but that's taking variances. Within this small block, we're already hit by 3 variances and these what seem excessive. I mean, if I was living right next door to this, it would be blocking my garden. I wouldn't be getting any sun in the day. And you keep allowing these variances, should be the exception, not the rule. But you know, when's that going to happen next door to me and next door on the other side? And I just feel like the single family home owners in this area aren't giving it, you know, being given any respect or regard. These developers just want to move in, take what they can, get out, and they're not contributing nothing to the community. You know, it just feels like an invasion to me. So I don't see how we can just continually approve minor variances. And that's my fight against it anyway.
Thank you. Planning staff, please explain.
I also note, if I could, the other one on La Joie it was listed at 4 million. So these are not affordable housing. They're not accessible. They're not accessibility friendly. So they're not, say, meeting with the official plan of providing affordable housing in the neighborhood. These are my points anyway against granting the variance.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, would you like to respond, please?
Sure. My understanding of the property on La Joie, I haven't heard the 4 million price. I've heard a much lower price, but this is not the forum to get into that. The variances are only on lot width. and lot area. We are exceeding the setback that is required for the rear yard. So it is further away from your property than it is required to be. We are going to have fencing along your neighbor's property, mutual property line, and then along a portion of the side lot line that's closest to you. I believe in your submission, you indicated that parking is an issue in the neighborhood on infill properties, and we're providing 1 parking space per unit. So we do not, this is in an area where parking is not required for the first 12 units. So we are providing 3 parking spaces in the rear yard of this property. The scale of the variances are quite small in terms of the lot width and the lot area, and the triplex that was built on Le Joie is on quite a much smaller property. It's maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of the size of this property.
Ms. Carvajal, could you please explain to us what you can build in an R4B zone?
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair. An R4B zone permits a range of housing, which includes single, semis, duplex, triplexes, as well as low-rise apartment buildings.
Low-rise apartment buildings up to how many units?
For this, I believe there's a limit to up to 4 units. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Egan, you're not unfortunately, you're not in a single-family neighborhood. You've got multi-unit zoning, and that's.
Is that the zoning that's just been changed recently, or?
I don't know when.
I mean, I know there's lots of other places developers go. This area is definitely initially a single family homes. That's what we are. That's what it.
I have no idea when the zoning was changed or if it has been changed. No clue. Anyway, we had. Is there another speaker? I have a Mr. Sharp that's identified on the screen. Mr. Sharp.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. Can you give us your address, please?
Yes, I'm at 324 Laurier Avenue West.
Okay. And you wish to speak to this application?
Yes, I was just going to mention that I have spoken to the neighbors, the rear, to the left, to the right, and directly across the street.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbors on the left, right, and the ones across the street were in full support.
You're the developer, Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you. Continue.
The neighbors were all in support. I did speak to the over email, the neighbor directly behind. His concern was just that there would be a fence in the back, which I've agreed.
He doesn't live there though.
Yeah, I understand that he has tenants in that property. It's a rental property.
Mm-hmm.
And so after speaking with him, he was comfortable, as far as I know, that as long as I took care of a fence in the rear.
All right.
As for the property and the comment about developers leaving, this is going to be one of my properties. So I'm looking at keeping it going forward.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Are there any questions from any of the members on this application? Mr. Wilder. You're muted, Mr. Wilder.
Just my concern is with the that silver maple. I went by the property, that silver maple. That's a distinctive tree. What is being done to preserve that tree, Mr. Robinson?
Maple is the one on. That's on the shared. That's on the. There's 2 maples on the property.
That's right. There are 2 maples, right?
Okay, so it's the one near the driveway.
Right.
That is to be retained. And we have had an arborist submit a tree conservation report on this.
All right, thank you.
And the tree at the rear of the property on the property line is also to be retained, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay, and you'll be removing the ones at the street. There's two of them, and replacing them with more trees.
If I could interject there, I have spoken to the neighbors. They've all asked that I remove those two front trees as they don't fit in the neighborhood. I have agreed I will be replacing those. In regards to what we're going to put there, I'm going to allow the city to select the most appropriate trees for that. I've already been in touch with the city in regards to planting new ones there.
Okay. All right. Any of the members have any further comments regarding this application before we make a decision? All right. This application, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Egan, Mr. Sharp. Application is to simply to reduce lot width and area, and the triplex is an allowable use in the neighborhood. The setbacks are larger than the minimums required.
Mr. Chair.
Property is the property.
Chair. It looks like the Secretary Treasurer is trying to get your attention.
Mr. Belmar.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we lost the connection with Mr. Wilder for a few minutes there.
Yep.
And I just wanted to signal that to you. It was signaled to you as well by Member Wildman earlier.
Yeah.
And I see that Mr. Member Wilder is back with us. And but just from the point of view of procedural fairness, I just want to highlight that it's generally improper for anyone who was not present during the entire hearing as an adjudicator to be taking part in making the decision. So I'm just putting forward as a recommendation that we mark Member Wilder is not voting and perhaps absent simply on this particular item.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Anyway, I understand the concerns of the neighbor. However, I'm also looking at the map, and the neighbor who is objecting is a considerable distance away from where the new building will be going up. But I do understand the neighbor's concerns on the transformation of the community he lives in. And quite frankly, with R4B zoning, these kinds of things happen. You may be well advised to possibly talk to your counselor about this, or your local community association, because if this is a concern in your part of the city, you maybe should increase the discussion and not just at committee of adjustment. Anyway, I'm prepared to grant this application as submitted. All in favor, with the exception of Mr. Wilder?
Mr. Chair, please record my dissent for the second variance.
The second variance. Mr. Wildman does not support variance B, reduced lot area. That's duly noted. So the application is carried with Mr. Wildman's dissent and Mr. Wilder's absence. Thank you. Good luck with your project, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Oh. And Mr. Robinson, here we go again.
I thought I saved time by doing all the
oh well,
the oaths.
It's the way it goes. So this is in regards to 852 Woodruff Avenue. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
Okay. Now, regarding 852 Woodruff Avenue, this is a consent to subdivide for a constructed semi-detached at 852 Woodruff Avenue.
That is correct.
Very briefly, Mr. Robinson.
Okay. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the property now. You can see the notification sign in the front. It's on the west side of Woodruff between Carling and Highway 417. Semis that were built and have occupancy permits. There were no minor variances required for these semis.
Yeah.
Next, please. This is the survey plan. Part 1 and 2 on this survey plan are for the northerly semi, and part 3 and 4 are for the southerly semi. Parts 2 and 4 are easements in favor of Hydro Ottawa.
Okay.
I don't think there's any more pages.
You're aware of the conditions?
Yes.
Fire separation from building code services, a certification re the party wall.
Yes.
Independent services, a joint use and maintenance agreement, and a noise agreement.
Yes. It's that's to be registered on title.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any members have any comments, questions? All in favor of granting this consent? Your consent is approved, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, one more time. All right.
There's 2 more. There's this and one more.
Yeah. We're not going to deal with 2215 Plesser. So, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right. And the application for Plesser is minor variance to permit a reduced total side yard setback and to allow front yard parking for the construction of a new 2-story semi-detached dwelling. So this property has some history. So if you'd like to go through that, Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
while you're doing this, thanks.
Yes, I believe it was in February 2019. Same owners, but a different representation in front of the committee. They applied for semis on this property. The variances were granted. There was the same side yard setback variance that is being requested now. There was not a variance related to parking. And what happened after that is the variances were granted, the appeal period ended, and then the owners submitted to the city a demolition permit, and the demolition permit was granted. They removed the house on the property, and then they started the building permit process. And in the course of the building permit process, they were told that a grading and servicing plan would be required. The owners are just individual homeowners, and they were not aware of what a grading and servicing plan was. And they got civil engineers involved in doing the design for that. One of the key components in this is that at the time that the demolition permit was issued, and as they were going through the initial stages of the building permit, the actual house was constructed. This is a prefab home, a prefab semis built by Bonneville Homes, and everything above the top of foundation has been built and is in a storage area of Bonneville Homes in the Montreal area. Okay. Then they started looking at the grading and servicing issues, and it was discovered that in order to have a driveway and a garage, a driveway leading to a garage, there would have to be quite significant slopes on the property. And the maximum slope that you can have in the bylaw without a heated driveway is 6%. The maximum slope you can have with a heated driveway is 8%. Based on the grades in the area, if you were to go with a 6% slope, the building height would be 9.06 meters. The maximum building height is 8 meters in this area, and our design has a 7.99 meter height. So our height is zoning compliant under what is before you today. If we were to have a 6% driveway leading to a garage, the building height would be 9.06 meters. If we went to an 8% slope, the height of the building would come down to 8.95. And if we were to have a building that is zoning compliant from a height point of view, the slope, I believe, would have to be about 22%. So it's very steep. It also results in a lot of stairs at the front of the house. I believe it was calculated that if we went with the 8% slope option, we'd have 12 steps to the front door. Also, at the bottom of the driveway by the garage, we'd have to have a catch basin. And then there would have to be a connection from that into the storm sewer in the street. There have been issues on the street in terms of flooding. As recently, I believe, as 2012, there was flooding on the street. One of the issues, or one of the matters that was raised by the, I believe, infrastructure, is that if this was to be approved with a depressed driveway, they would want a raised area. I think it was 30 or 35 centimeters in height at the property line, and that is to prevent any flooding from the street to spill down the driveway and into the catch basin. So the depressed driveway is not something that the infrastructure at the city likes to allow for anymore. It causes issues related to higher insurance costs for the owners because it's a risk. The onus is on, I believe, the design engineers, and the design engineers would prefer to have just a parking space for each semi in the front yard. It's shown on plans that I will talk about in a few minutes. There are other examples on the street of homes that have built parking pads. Many of them are on the city right of way, and they are used quite extensively. There are some houses on the street as you go to the east that have depressed driveways. My review of being to the property a number of times is the actual garages are not used for parking purposes. It's the driveways that are being used. And that's what we're proposing here, is to have a single car driveway for each of the two units. As you approach the street from Canterbury Avenue, it does a bit of a jog. There's very limited line of sight exposure to this. The owners are willing to go with, have as much landscaping as can be done to screen this. That is the issue on the front yard parking. In terms of the side yard, there's a requirement for a total side yard setback of 3 meters and no one individual side of less than 1.2 meters. On the east side, so that would be the side that's adjacent to that the property to the east that you can see their building and their carport, it would be a 1.2 meter setback all along, and that was what was proposed before. On the west side, it's 1.2 meters for a very small area right at the back of the building. The lot lines are not parallel. As you get closer to the street itself, the 1.2 meters on the west side increases to about 5 or 6 meters. So it's a very small area, and it's driven by the west wall of the westerly semi that's triggering that variance. If you could go to the next screen, please. This is the view of the center of the property with the construction fencing around it. You can see there are other semis behind it. You can see in the background there is a semi immediately on the left that was shown in the previous photo. Next screen, please. This is the west side of the property. There is hedging and fencing, screening these uses from adjacent properties. Next, please. These are the property on the left, the photo on the left with the red car. It has a driveway leading to a carport. That is the property immediately across the road. They've been informed about this. They have no issues with it. Same with the property on the right, another single family home. The zoning is R2, is in an R2 zoning that does permit semis. Next screen, please. This is a view of a property on at 2190 and 2192 Plesser. So as you go east on Plesser, and then Plesser does a turn to the north, this is the first house on the north. They are using, they've got a car parked on the driveway, and then they've got a car parked in that parking pad that is parallel with the road. And every time I've been there, that seems to be the how they're parking some of the vehicles for that property. Next, please. On the left is 2184 Plesser. It's got front yard parking. The photo that I showed before, that is of a property that's on the background of that side of Plesser on the same side. And then on the right, in the foreground is 2187 Plesser. That's a semi. It's got reverse drainage driveway. They seem to be using the parking pad that's parallel with the road. And then in the background is 2181 Plesser. That's a corner lot. And they've got 2 or 3 parking spaces that are in the corner side yard right up against Plesser. So it looks like a front yard parking situation. Next, please. This is right across the road from, it's just across the road and a little bit to the east. This is 2202 Plesser. They have basically blocked off their garage and they're using their driveway for, I guess, car parking and basketball purposes. The basketball net, from what the owners have told me, used to be theirs, and they donated it to their neighbors at 2202 Plesser when they moved, and cars are not being parked in the garage there. Next, please. This is the survey plan from when there was a building on the property. Plesser to the north, the semis to the east on the right. There are also semis behind it on Saunderson Drive. There is a church parking lot just on the north side of Plesser, just west of this property. This shows where the building was originally. We are provided, and there are hedges, or have been hedges, along the lot lines. Next, please. This is the proposed site plan. So you can see on the top, there's a 1.2 meter setback to the north lot line. And then the 1.2 meters on the south side is only at the, really in one place where it says lot line 36.94 meters. Above that is a 1.2 meter dimension. And as you get towards the front of the building, I believe it goes to about 6.5 meters. So it's only a very small area of the south side of the southerly semi that triggers that variance. We're proposing 2 single car driveways for this property. And there is there's a city tree of 50 centimeters in diameter that is on the south side of the property. That is to remain. There is I think it's a 15 centimeter diameter tree that is where the proposed driveway is, and they're proposing to relocate that. And then there is a tree which we have we have the agreement from Forestry Services to remove upon a building permit. That is where the southerly semi is, and then there's also a tree in the rear yard of the northerly semi that we have the indication from Forestry Services that they would approve its removal upon a building permit. These next, please. This is the left elevation, so that would be looking at towards the semi that is existing on the property to the east. Next, please. Rear elevation. These units are very similar to one another. Next, please. The right elevation. And this is the front elevation. So the existing semi to the east is shown on the left with its carport, a 1.2 meter setback to the lot line, a driveway in the front yard, and then I believe it's only 4 steps to the front door under this option, which would not have the reverse drainage slope. There is a note, if you look on the right-hand side of the semi, it says top of foundation, and everything above that has been built. And it's waiting to come to this property once the foundations are dug, and it would be placed, it's a prefab home, and it would be placed, so the construction timeline, once the foundations are poured, is quite short with a prefab home like this. Next, please. Oh, sorry. That's the drawings.
Okay.
And I did have a conversation on the phone, and I did email the neighbor immediately to the east, and talked to that neighbor about the application and the variances. She didn't have any issues with the idea of front yard parking. She had a few questions about what the setbacks were going to be from her carport to the lot line, what the setbacks were going to be from the carport to the house, and from her house to this new house. That was the extent of her questions with me.
The department has some concerns with the parking configuration.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As indicated in the report, the department has no concerns with the reduced side yard setback, noting that it's only a portion of it that will be reduced and it will still maintain functionality. However, as per the zoning bylaw, front yard parking has been prohibited since around 1964. And in this area, although we recognize that parking is required as per section 101, section 109 says that parking should not be provided in a required front yard parking. Required front yard. Although Mr. Robinson had indicated there are some houses that appear to have front yard parking. Those parking spaces have not been looked at to see whether they have legal non-conforming rights, and some of them appear to be in city right-of-way.
Okay. In the department's opinion, is it better to have front yard parking or force these people to build a home with depressed driveways and the potential for flooding?
Well, also, I do recognize that I believe the reason for the front yard parking was due to the grading. We would have to express some concerns with the front yard parking, mainly because it is being subsequently prohibited through the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, any comments?
No, it's just it's unfortunate that the owners have come to this this situation, and we did look at a number of options in terms of slopes and what that trigger. If we didn't provide parking, it needs a variance. This is an area where you have to provide parking. You have to provide one parking space. If we provided a slope that was not heated, we would have a height variance. If we had a maximum slope that could be heated, then there's a lesser height variance. And if we provide a driveway slope that doesn't trigger a variance in terms of height, we have a very steep slope and retaining walls along the sides of the driveways and around the edge of the building. So we thought that this is the option that would be an effective way to provide one parking space per unit.
Okay. Any other members have comment on this application? Would Ms. Berthiaume like to say anything?
She's the owner.
Yes.
Hi. So I just want to say, I realize that this is not ideal for anyone. We didn't just build our houses without any help from anyone. We had hired a project manager who was recommended by Bonneville. And we went through the whole process with them and with the other engineer who did our minor variances last year. So we weren't given the recommendation that the height was too high or that the garages should be built lower into the home. And it really is not, I just feel it's not an ideal situation. Anyways, we are with these homes, we have the property, and it's a lovely neighborhood, and we didn't want to move from there, and that's why we're doing this, because our house, the foundation was falling apart. And we're able to provide someone else another home in this neighborhood as well. So anyways, that's all I have to say. Is I'm nervous, but we hope we could rectify this.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Should we reserve on this, ladies and gentlemen? We want to make a decision now.
Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable making a decision, and frankly, on the whole issue, Mr. Robinson had me at. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed. Just knowing how difficult and problematic these depressed driveways are, I'm certainly comfortable making a decision now, but I'm in the hands of committee.
I'm comfortable as well. I mean, quite frankly, I note that the department's concerns regarding front yard parking. However, depressed driveways built in underneath these prefabs, to me, would be a worse situation than allowing front yard parking. Mr. Wilder, you have a comment?
I feel we can go ahead and vote. I don't see any to reserve.
All right.
Me too.
All right. Therefore, I'm in favor of this application. All in favor of the application as presented to us? Good luck with your moving project.
Thank you.
So how much is it going to cost to ship those houses from Montreal to here?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess we're on again.
Last one.
One more. And this is for item number 10 on the agenda, 266 Iona, which also has history, which you can run by us briefly. So, okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
Okay. So this application, like I said, it has some history. It has been before us in the past. Minor variances to permit a reduced corner side yard setback and increased driveway width to permit the principal entranceway to face the corner side lot line and to permit a garage wall to be set back the same distance as the front wall of the building. It is proposed to construct a two-story detached dwelling and the existing dwelling is to be demolished. Please proceed, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. So this building is a duplex at 266 Iona. It's at the southeast corner of Iona and Kirkwood. It had a fire in, I believe, in early 2019 that's still boarded up. The owner has had people breaking into the building. He's had to try and rectify that. The intent is to remove the existing structure and to build the home for he and his wife. There are a number of variances and a number of them are triggered by the fact that being a corner lot, there is less frontage on Kirkwood than Iona. So technically the front yard is Kirkwood and the corner side yard is Iona. And we're wanting to have the building face Iona. That triggers some of the variances. Right now, along the Kirkwood frontage, there's quite an extensive tree cover. And there is a OC Transpo bus stop and bus shelter. So getting a driveway on the Kirkwood frontage on a very busy road is not preferred. Next, please. This is the view along the west side of the property, along the Kirkwood frontage. So you can see the bus stop.
Yeah.
Cute. Next, please. These are semis that are being built on the southwest corner of Kirkwood and Iona. I believe they've been before your committee in the past. On the right is a photo of a triplex that exists right now in the northeast corner of Iona and Kirkwood, and then there's a single family home to the east. Next, please. This is the subject property is on the right. On the left is a single family home with a reverse drainage driveway. And there are comments, I believe, from that owner with our client on this. And they don't have any real concerns. Next, please. This is the view along the south side of the property. The existing house is on the left. On the right is a property that fronts onto Kirkwood. So this would be along the interior side yard. Next, please, in that same location, but only 6 meters wide. Next, please. This is on the top half is the existing survey plan, and on the bottom is the proposed site plan. So the variances are variance A is for the corner side yard setback. So that would be on the left-hand side of that drawing. There, the setback is 3 meters to the front, the lot line along Iona. The requirement is 6 meters. We have a fairly narrow lot in terms of its depth coming in from Iona, so we're asking for a variance on the corner side yard setback. Staff don't have any issues with that. There is also a variance required for the driveway. We are having it 3 meters wide at the actual edge of the curb, but then widening it out to 6 meters at the property line and then at the edge of the garage. There is a hydro pole close to the driveway near the curb, so we're having the driveway away from that. If Iona was the front lot line and this was not a corner lot, the width of the driveway that's being proposed of 6 meters would not require a variance. It's all related to the fact that the front lot line is Kirkwood. The other variances are somewhat related. That on a corner lot, you're to have the principal entrance face the front lot line, which is Kirkwood. That the design that we're proposing does not lend itself to that. The existing building faces Iona, and we're mirroring that. And with the fact that we're at a fairly busy corner, we did not feel that it would be appropriate to have the front entrance or primary entrance facing Kirkwood. And the last variance is related to the garage. Technically, that's related to the fact that the edge of the building facing Kirkwood is the front wall of the building. And in those situations, you are to recess the garage from the remainder of the front wall of the building. So there is a small portion of the front wall of the building facing Kirkwood that is not the garage, and we are supposed to recess it from that. It did not seem like a very good design idea. We are recessing the garage along the Iona frontage from any other, the closest point of the building to the Iona itself. So those are the variances. We've received feedback from some neighbors when the owner sent the revised plans in. We had to be back before the committee a couple of times to get the right wording related to the variances. We've had dialogue with the property owner to the east and to the two immediate property owners to the south. We met with the community association, and there was also a couple of comments, one from another property owner on Iona west of Kirkwood, who is also a member of the community association, and then a person in the neighborhood, I think to the northwest, who had an issue with the previous version of the application, and we've addressed their concerns by reducing the height of the building.
All right. Any questions, comments from members of the committee? So the objections that we have here from the past have been cleared?
That is correct.
Okay. Because there was one for height variance and then two for height variance actually, and you're now within the bylaw.
Correct.
And one individual complained that the variances were unreasonable and excessively out of character.
Was that when it was a height variance as well?
No, not for that particular individual.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Does the owner wish to speak to this as well, or? I guess Mr. Ruppel's not online. All right. So, any of the members have any comments, concerns regarding this application? Are we prepared to grant this application as presented? All in favor? All right. Good luck with your project, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, and have a good afternoon. Thank you.
It's the last time you have to swear an oath with you.
Yes. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
See you. And the final application that we will deal with today is item 11 on the agenda, 8284 Eccles Street.
And Mr. Chair, I'm declaring interest on this application, so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McLean. And who's going to swear the oath, Mr.
All right, yeah, hello, Mr. Chair. My name is Tim Bede. I'm back to represent this application.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
Yes, I do.
All right. This application is minor variances to permit an increase in dwelling units, reduced side yard and rear yard setbacks, and reduced and increased path widths. It is proposed to convert the existing 3 dwelling unit building into a 6 dwelling unit structure. So
that's correct.
Please proceed, Mr. Bede.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Timothy Bede with Vote 10 Planning and Design. I am agent of the applicant, which is 2B Developments. With me today is Olivia Gauthier with 2B, as well as my colleague Brian Casagrande, also with Vote 10. Vote 10 is at 396 Cooper in Ottawa. So as you've mentioned, the existing building at 82 Eccles was retained, and permits were received to construct another building on 84 Eccles, which was previously vacant. It's a 4-unit wing addition to the existing structure that was on the site. So I'll talk today to the 4 tests of the planning of the committee for minor variance and how this represents good planning. So I can go to the next slide. So the lot, as indicated here, outlined in blue, is 431 meters squared with 16 meters frontage along Eccles. It has a depth of 28 meters. I'll talk just briefly to the history on the site. The property owner and management team had previously received permits for the construction of the residential building on the vacant portion of the lands. As per the historic imagery that was accessed through Geo Ottawa, the vacant portions of the lands known most municipally as 84 Eccles have been vacant as far as we can tell since at least 1928. Due to a design change when 2B Developments became involved in the project, an application for minor variance became required to facilitate the new intent for the building and the lot, and was submitted to the Committee of Adjustment. It was adjourned, similar to the previous application I was speaking to. It was adjourned so that the site plan control process could occur to receive technical feedback from planning staff to ensure that when we were ready to come back to Committee of Adjustment, the building was in its final design and layout, which is the case now. In terms of public consultation, the mandatory pre-app consultation meeting with the community and municipal staff has occurred. It was in August 2019. And since then, there have been ongoing communications between the management team, the residents, and the community association. We'll move on to the next slide, please. The lot is currently zoned R4H, subzone H. Again, the intent of the fourth density residential zone is to accommodate predominantly low-rise development that's compatible with the existing community in the general urban area. Next slide, please. The official plan designation for the subject property is general urban area, which accommodates a wide range of building typologies in the low-rise massing and in close proximity to various employment areas and other services, cultural, leisure, recreational facilities. Next slide, please. The subject property is well situated within an established urban area in Ottawa. It's in close proximity to the Somerset and Preston traditional Main Street, and it is well served by existing community parks, recreational facilities, and schools, as well as active transportation infrastructure. Next slide, please. The site is also well served by the current and future rapid transit infrastructure. It is within approximately 600 meters of Pimsey Station, as well as the future Gladstone, or the existing Gladstone station that is subject to upgrades for the Trillium Line extension. Next slide, please. So just talking about the existing character, the existing character of the community is quite varied with multiple building typologies, lot sizes, and lot fabrics represented. Next slide, please. Along Eccles, the predominant building typology is low-rise, 1 and 2 stories predominantly, with some multi-unit, some duplex, some triplex, and some single detached homes. Next slide, please. And this is just showcasing the different building typologies. You can see in the distance on this image, there is also 3 and 4 story residential and institutional buildings in the immediate context of the subject property. Next slide, please. And here, through an AXO aerial image, we can showcase the variable existing character with surface parking, low-rise and medium-rise residential buildings, as well as we can see in the foreground the Somerset Community Health Facility, which is a larger building. And yes, thank you. Next slide. This image shows the previous condition before the reconstruction occurred, the surface parking lot, as well as the existing and retained building to the east. Next slide, please. So in terms of the proposal, I'll just give a brief summary and then I can discuss how it adheres to the 4 tests of a minor variance. The building is proposed as a low-rise 6-unit apartment building with a height of 7.8 meters, which is less than the permitted height. The landscaped area is 40% of the lot. There is 91 square meters of amenity space, 6 bicycle parking spaces provided within a rear yard enclosed area that also has some other purposes, as well as the rear yard area is currently at 124 square meters, whereas the required provision would have it at 107 square meters. And you'll see the western interior side yard setback is at 1.25 meters officially measured. It transitions from 1.5 meters closer to the front property line to the 1.25. There's a similar instance in the rear yard where the setback is adheres to the provisions of the bylaw for a portion, the majority of the portion of the building face, and the required variance is along the eastern portion. Next slide, please. The renders show the low-rise built form to help to retain the existing character. The building will consist of 2 stories and 2 buildings with 2 stories and 2 separated volumes, with the existing building retained. The height and massing of the proposal maintain a consistency with the surrounding urban fabric in that 2-story built form. There's been design decisions to include masonry facades, contemporary windows and details to enhance the building's presence and provide an updated aesthetic. The buildings will provide 5 entrances. Most units will therefore have individual and independent private entrances from the outdoors. And the entrances to the 2 of the upper floor units will be accessed via internal stairway. Bicycle storage, as mentioned, is located in the rear in an enclosed facility. Accessory building and garbage is to be stored in the low pile enclosure to the front of the site. Previously, the site was contained a low amount to no vegetation. The landscape program provides an increase in that with hedging and sodding to the front, as well as hardscaping landscaping, and new trees provided in the rear yard. Next slide, please.
And I take it there's no parking on this site?
There's no parking provided or required on this site.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's a rendering showcasing the condition for the rear yard with the accessory building and the proposed and the provided new trees. Next slide, please. The elevations showcase the distinct massing and separation of the 2 wings of the building, which we believe helps to provide and reflect and respect the existing character and break up that street face, providing a more complementary urban fabric and urban rhythm to the street. Next slide, please. The side elevation to the west, which relates to one of the minor variances requested, has been designed specifically to decrease any impacts, perceived impacts on privacy or overlook, with minimal window placements on that facade. Next slide, please. This image is included to just provide an update on the existing condition. And as you know, the building was approved and permits issued. The design has changed. However, the building is mostly completed to date. And this is the existing condition of the site. Next slide, please. So I'll speak to the 4 tests now. The first being the general intent and purpose of the official plan is maintained. The building conforms to official plan policies, including the policies of the general urban area, as it provides low-rise development permitted up to 4 stories. This is 2 stories. And it offers infill development, which is generally compact and compatible with the existing community. It continues to foster that vibrant, diverse community with variable built forms. Due to its height, it is able to provide adequate transitions to the existing neighbors immediately abutting the property. And the building adheres to the design and compatibility criteria as discussed with section 2.51 and 411 of the official plan. The 2-story height, building orientation, and the proposed amenity space landscaping program provide for a compatible and appropriate condition. So although there's been a requested increase in units, those important zoning provisions have been maintained. And given the immediate street context contains building heights consistent with 2 stories, the proposed massing and height represents a sensitive and appropriate and complementary design. The second test of a minor variance meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The property is zoned residential force density in the subzone H, which allows for low-rise residential development of this size and scale. So there has been a minor variance submitted that impacts related to the footprint of the building in terms of those setbacks. The building is able to maintain 40% of the lot area is landscaped, significant amenity area, and it exceeds other, other setbacks and other performance standards. At 7.8 meters, the building height is significantly lower than the 11 meters required or permitted, sorry, in the zone. Regarding the request to permit an additional 2 units on the site, as opposed to the 4 units which are currently permitted in the zone, in the subzone. As the building is able to provide, as mentioned, the amenity space and landscaping area, and also contain those units within a low profile built form, the field zoning bylaw is adhered to. The surrounding zoning context contains a number of other zones in the residential fourth density, as well as traditional Main Street and other zones, which do not contain the unit max provision. In that sense, that portion of the minor variances requested, we don't believe would impact the overall community or the community character. The walkway variances in terms of the pathway and the walkway to the west and rear are substantially similar to those of the existing character and provide an additional functionality on the site. The variance is minor. The request for unit increase represents only an increase of 3 units from the existing condition and only 2 units over the proposed allowable maximum. Given that the building has an undersized height and envelope, we feel this represents a similar impact as an as-of-right condition. As mentioned, the existing variances to the rear and side yard, one of which is represented to capture an existing condition on the portion of the building that was retained, will not be noticeable or impactful. The setback on the interior side yard transitions from the permit of 1.5 to the 1.25 to the rear. The rear yard setback, although slightly deficient, is the area is provided adequately. And we feel that the dominant in terms of the front yard walkway and its increased width, the dominant character of the area is that of predominantly hardscaping, which was the existing condition on the site. We are providing for an improvement to the hardscaping as well as soft landscaping to mitigate any concerns and soften that and provide a more positive interface. We believe that the minor variances are desirable and appropriate. The building, as mentioned, reads as 2 separate buildings and therefore helps to replicate and represent the existing built form. And it provides additional housing, as mentioned previously, in terms of that low-rise infill that's sensitive to the community. It provides more options for residents to have different types of tenure and unit types. It's context sensitive. It's the increase in unit size is well represented by other zones within the immediate context. And the proposed mass and design are reflexive of the existing condition along the street.
All right.
So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Thank you, Mr. Bede. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? All right, are we prepared to cast a vote on this application? Okay. All in favor of the application as presented to us? The application's approved unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Thank you. And I guess we have to log out and come back in for the reserved item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I've emailed you all the new meeting information.
Okay, I'll do that right now.